Okay, so with the console release right around the corner, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to take you through the steps on how to build a loadout properly so you don't waste all your supply points on things you don't really need. I'm not going to make this video super in depth. I don't want to flood you with too much information, so I'm going to try and keep this short and just straight to the point. So let's get into it. So when you first start playing the game, you only have access to the Rifleman class. This doesn't apply to Domination though. In that game mode, you have access to everything right off the bat and you can just use whatever you want, just run around and have fun. It doesn't really matter. This will only apply to Push and Frontline for now. I'm not going to go through these other classes because what I say will more or less apply to these classes as well, with only small adjustments. Like I said, let's just keep this simple and stick with Rifleman. Right, so the first thing you're going to notice is that you only have 15 supply points to build your loadout. There's also normally a weight percentage bar above your loadout, but it's not here at the moment because I'm in the customization menu and it doesn't display here for some reason. Let's begin with the single most important piece of equipment that you should have on you at all times: the gas mask. Whether you're attacking or defending, there is no reason why this shouldn't be on your face at all times. There is a slight visual obstruction around your screen, but once you wear it enough, you won't even notice it's there. The gas mask will obviously protect you against the chemical mortars that the insurgents can call in, but it also has a couple other important uses as well that a lot of new players don't notice. Your player in game will let out certain audio cues in different situations, so for example, when a grenade lands near you, your character will yell out "grenade, grenade," or when you get shot at, you'll scream out, and when a friendly dies right next to you, you'll yell out "friendly down" or some variation of that. All of these audio cues can be heard by the enemy and the gas mask muffles your voice, making it harder to hear. I know this might not seem important, but I've lost count of how many times I've killed someone because I've heard their character in game. This also applies to smoke. The gas mask will stop your character from coughing and carrying on when you're in the smoke. This is one of the main problems I see with newer players. They'll throw smoke toward the objective but run through it and instantly notify the enemy that we're there because they're not wearing the mask and the enemy was able to hear us coughing. This is one of the most valuable pieces of equipment in the game and you should have it on you at all times. This is another area where I see a lot of new players struggle to understand. I know the idea of armor might seem appealing, but it honestly really isn't worth it. The way armor works is that it gives you a damage reduction mainly from shrapnel. So if a grenade lands near you, you'll have more of a chance to survive it. It does offer some protection from bullets, but at the very most it's going to make you survive 1 or 2 extra bullets from certain weapons at longer ranges. 3 bullets if you're lucky. Unfortunately, the bad just outweighs the good here. Armor is very expensive and it also nerfs your mobility. So it makes you move slower and it also makes you ADS slower. Armor just isn't worth it most of the time and I can't justify taking it for that very slim chance it might save you in a specific situation. The carriers are more situational than armor and aren't completely useless. At the very most, you will only need the light carrier, but that depends on what gun you're running and if you want to carry an extra grenade. When you're attacking on push, it's probably a good idea to bring one so you can hold a little bit more ammo and a smoke grenade to help push the objective. I'd also consider the light carrier if I was running a gun that runs out of ammo really quickly, like the FAMAS or the ASVAL, but don't be afraid to not take a carrier. It's a great way to stay light and move fast to catch the enemy off guard. The heavy carrier isn't super necessary in my opinion. It's really expensive and really heavy. There are situations where you could use one. For example, if you were a gunner and were spending the whole time on your belly mowing down the team's respawns, or if you're playing the demolitions class and want to take all the explosives you can. But because you're just sticking with the rifleman class to begin with, let's not concern ourselves with that. Alright, so now all that boring stuff is out of the way, let's move on to your primary weapon selection. We're in the security faction right now, so you have the choice of these weapons. Basically any gun in Sandstorm is viable and you can use whatever you want though. I do have a video series breaking down all these guns if you want to check them out, but let's just stick with the Orge 3 because it's a brilliant starting weapon. I know it might be tempting to put all the fancy attachments on your gun, but they really aren't the priority to begin with. An optic is completely personal choice, but I'd recommend a 1x to 2x variant. Let's just go with the holo for now. A 2x zoom is completely fine for most of the engagements you're going to be in, and let's put a flash hider on as well. It's a very cheap way to hide the muzzle flash of your weapon and I almost always use one. So that will do our weapon for now and we'll return here in a moment to see if we can afford an underbarrel attachment. I hardly ever use a secondary honestly, unless I'm playing as a marksman, or I'll sometimes even take one if I'm using a shotgun. They can come in handy, but most of the time I don't even worry about them, but we'll return here in a moment as well. Okay, so grenades. Let's assume you're attacking on push. Smoke is going to be your best friend here. I'm the kind of dude that feels uncomfortable only bringing one smoke grenade when I'm attacking, so we're actually going to equip the light carrier so we can take one more. You can exchange one of these smokes for a grenade if you wish, but that's entirely up to you and it will depend on the situation that you're in. Alright, so at this point we have 4 supply points left, so we're going to go back to our primary and choose an underbarrel attachment. My personal favourites are the aiming and loading grip, but a recoil grip might be useful for console players. But for this example, we're going to put a smoke launcher on, which will give us 2 extra smokes. Once we do that, we now have 3 points to spend. But just because we have supply points left doesn't mean we need to spend them, but if you want, feel free to use a secondary. I'd personally just like to stay a bit lighter and not take one. Now let's make some slight adjustments to our loadout for when we're defending the objective. The only difference here is that we're going to unequip all the smoke basically. So we're going to replace the smoke grenade with the incendiary grenade, which are great for blocking off doorways and entry points to the objective, and you might also consider taking 2 of them. But we're actually going to keep a frag here instead. Next, we'll exchange the smoke launcher for a grip of your choice. I'd personally take the aiming or loading grip like I said, but choose whichever one you feel more comfortable with. And there you have it. There are 2 very simple and quick examples of a loadout for PvP. There are plenty of variations you could come up with, but just keep in mind that utilities such as grenades are far more important than putting all the attachments on your gun. And don't forget, wear your mask.